So, hello everybody, and welcome to our webinar, Geo Risk Under Control. My name is Markus Wissing. I'm your host today, and I will guide you through this webinar. I'm working for Conterra for 18 years now, and I'm the product owner of the Geo Risk Analyzer and loves to present you our application today. So this webinar is recorded, and we will give you at the end a link to the recording, so you don't have to take notes if you don't want to. I want to introduce the companies who are behind the offering. So first, the first data provider is the Swiss Re. They are a leading global reinsurer with a very long tradition of being in the field of global natural hazards because it's part of their main reinsurance business. The second company is the Geo Risk Intelligence. They have a strong focus on political risks. And the third company is Conterra. We are a mapping software development company. We like to bring maps in an easy and comfortable way to our users to solve their problems. So we put together the parts. We integrated the geodata of the two data providing companies, and we built the Geo Risk Analyzer app. So have a look at today's agenda. So we want to start with why do geo risk management at all? So we talk about the increasing of natural hazards and political risks. We also see that these problems matters in different lines of business, for example, insurance, real estate, or retail. But today we have a focus on the supply chain perspective. So for that, we then switch to the live demo. We want to show the easy workflow with the Geo Risk Analyzer to do a proactively geo risk management. Then we want to stop and talk about the benefits. And finally, having a Q&A section. You can ask your question in advance to the chat functionality during the whole webinar. And at the end, we will grab up these questions and we will answer them. So for those questions we cannot cover because of the missing time, we will answer them afterwards individually to the questionnaire via email. So every question will get an answer. And finally, we want to have the takeaways. We want to wrap up with the information to take away for everyone. So from the agenda now, we will switch to the first topic. Why do geo risk management at all? So today we see in our world a lot of media and TV reports about bomb attacks or violent riots. So sadly, they have become part of our daily lives. Politically, unrests, civil wars, or terrorism not only mean a threat to the population in that region, but also directly impacts the globalized world economy. Even non or less violent conflicts are dangerous to our supply chain location. So they don't have to be violent conflicts or don't have to be warlike conflicts. Even the violent conflicts have influence to our supply chain. On the other hand, the climate change is happening, and we all have examples for these natural hazards in mind of the last few years. For example, we see here how destructive a tornado can be. Some politicians still deny this climate change, but most scientists are clear in their message that this climate change exists and already has a great impact to our life and our economy. So we see here, for example, a river flood event in the Czech Republic. Those events caused also great damage to our supply chain in the last years. And last but not least, we have also the tsunami event in Japan that still everyone has in mind. So we have the feeling that this political conflicts and also these natural hazards become more and more frequent than in the past. But is it so also from a statistical point of view? So we want to check this by having a look on different statistics. And to say the answer in advance, definitely yes. Also, these statistics will say we have an increase. So the first one we see here is the so-called dynamics of violent political conflicts. So these started in these graphics from 1945. And what we see is that we have, on the other hand, intra and intrastate conflicts on the one hand, and also conflicts on war level and below war level, more like violent conflicts like terrorism. So in general, we see a dominance of the intrastate conflicts, after the last World War. So what's important is the turning point at the end of the Cold War. So from that point, we see a dramatical increase of the intrastate conflicts. So we also notice in a transformation in the conflict behavior. So there are less heavy arms and less organized fightings, and there's more distribution of small arms and more economic motivated conflicts. And also after 9/11, we see more religious and more cultural motivated conflicts, especially in the area of Near and Middle East. So these dramatical increase of conflicts, they have heavily affecting our worldwide location and also our supply chain locations. In the second statistic, we see the natural hazards. We see them from an insurance perspective through losses and damages. So we see that these losses are overall increasing. We see also that they are in single years with great damages. They caused by single events like, for example, in 2011, the tsunami, but also the average is rising significant. The second thing is that we see that the part of the uninsured losses, the red line, is rising even more than the blue line of the insured losses. But as conclusion of both statistics, we can see the political risks and also the natural hazards, they are rising also from a statistical point of view, not only from our emotional point of view. But now let's have a closer look, what does this risks mean to our business? So for that, we want to have a look at the study of the Allianz Risk Barometer. They do it yearly, and also they did it this year in 2017. They asked over 1,000 respondents, and that were risk consultants, underwriters, senior managers, and claims experts. And what they said is the most top risk for their insurance is the business interruption, as it was also in the last year. And also important are the natural catastrophes at place 4. And upcoming is the point of political risk and violence. So it's getting up from last year to this year. And also the climate change itself is here noted in an extra bullet. So you can put this also to the natural catastrophes. And other risks like, for example, the Brexit or power blackouts or breakdowns, they are less important for the business risk itself. And when we now switch over to what happens if a supply chain breaks down, so what consequences of disruption has it to a supply chain, then what we all would expect it is that the loss of productivity is the most known in a second study. This study is made from the Business Continuity Institute in the last year. And also what we see that nearly more than 50% said we have got an increased cost of working. But then mostly interesting is that also the customer complaints is a very big issue from a supply chain perspective, and also the damage to the brand reputation that is done to such a disruption of my supply chain, even more than the loss of the revenue. So we've got a lot of consequences that we'll get if we have a disruption of the supply chain. So as a conclusion, we think we need to have a geo risk management to solve these problems. But what do we need for a good geo risk management? So first of all, we need high quality risk data that give us a concrete risk value for our locations where we are. So geo risk management means take proactively a wise decision for a location. Can I link my business to this location or not? So that's the purpose of geo risk management. The data also must have a worldwide coverage. So because my business is worldwide in our times of globalization. So we want to have one single application to access these worldwide data at one time. And we don't want to look in different systems, which often only have national data from one single country. And we want to have the same kind of quality in the data worldwide. And we don't want to have different data qualities, for example, in Germany, than we have them in Thailand or in Australia. The third point is, with this data, we want to have an easy access to this data, and we want to have a guided workflow. So we don't want to spend much time to get the answers, but instead we want to have fun to use such an application. And the last point is that we want to directly start using this application. So we don't want to bother our internal IT to install software for me. We just want to start directly without installing new software process that could be in a large company difficult to deal with. And we also don't want to have updates of the software and updates of the data that we have to do on our own. We just want a ready-to-use web application. So these are the 4 points that we think we need for a good geo-risk management. And that's our idea behind. So the solution for these tasks of geo-risk management is, from our perspective, the Geo Risk Analyzer. We already built a lot of geo-risk management systems, especially for large car manufacturers and for big supply chain companies. So we do this for a long time and in many projects, and we had the idea to then condense the key functionality and the designs that we learned there for the Geo Risk Analyzer. This app is very focused just upon this one single question it wants to answer as best as possible. So, and the question is, are there any natural hazards or political risks near my worldwide locations that I should be aware of? So now we want to show how the Geo Risk Analyzer tried to answer this question as good as he can. So first of all, we need high quality risk data with a worldwide coverage. So therefore, we thought to look out, and we found that the worldwide coverage is available as digital geodata. Therefore, we talked to the Swiss Re. They have such data because they collect and prepare those data for a long time, more than 20 years, because it's part of their internal risk management. They do risk management for such a long time. And they've got worldwide hail data, data from tsunamis, from coastal floods, and from river floods. They have this data in the same type of quality around the world, so not different between different countries, which is very important from our perspective. And they also have data of wildfire, of wind, of tornadoes, and from earthquakes. So what also is important that they have a high resolution. For example, the river flood layer has got a 90-meter resolution worldwide. The other data we need is coming from CONIAS. They observe in an ongoing process the political development and the changes worldwide, and then condensed risk maps out of that. So with this data, this geodata allows us to visualize and to analyze the spatial relationships between the locations on the one hand, so my properties or my production sites, and their risk situation in the risk maps on the other side. So we put this data and then created the Geo Risk Analyzer. The Geo Risk Analyzer can be found in the Esri's marketplace. So it uses functionalities out of the Esri platform, but we will come back later how many advantages we will get out of this. But first of all, we now want to go to the live demonstration and start how the Geo Analyzer works. For that, I've got thought about a scenario. The scenario is, so I'm working in a procurement process for a supply chain, and I want to buy parts from a new potential supplier. So my task is make a risk assessment with the questions: should I link my existing supply chain to these new locations? So first of all, what's then to fulfill my task, I need data. So the data normally is coming from my supplier who wants to make a business with me. So he sent me just a list of addresses, more data he didn't have. So that's just 11 addresses with zip code, country, street, and so on, and also a few of my own attributes like a name for the location and my internal ID, and I could add also other information on that. So with this information, that's often the only thing I have to do my risk supply, my risk management. For that, I'm now switching to the Geo Risk Analyzer itself. It's a web application, so I grab here my web browser. I already logged in, so this is the first screen after the login. And as I said, we try to have an easy and guided workflow. So we are guided here, and the first step said, okay, please upload your data. And then I can upload the CSV file we've seen before. So I can just drag and drop it here, drop it there, and then it's already uploaded. And in the next step, I just have to think about the name. So here are the attributes we have seen in the CSV file. I go for the name field because it describes my object as best in the application. So now this is an important step. The second step, it's the step of automatically processing the data and making a geocoding with it. That means for every address we put it in, we want to try to find a coordinate in the world. And depending how good our addresses were that we put in the process, these are the results. So 9 of my locations are found in a good quality. It means they are founded exactly on a house number level. Then one location found only in a medium level means I only found it on a street level. I don't know exactly along the street where it is, but I still knew it's along the street. And the third one is lower than street level. So maybe I have a misspelling or a wrong street name in there that nobody knows, but it's still found then on a district level. But everything could be found, everything could be placed somewhere on the map. So then the next step is I go into my mapping application, and now I see my 11 locations already with the same kind of quality information we had before in the summary. And the next step in my guided workflow is check your locations. So optimize the results of the automatic geocoding. I've got then 2 opportunities. I can just move them around or just editing the addresses and relocate them. So for doing that, I just concentrate on the poor and medium ones, so I can blend out the good ones, and then we can see these 2 locations. When I click here on the first one, I zoom to it, then I can switch, for example, to an aerial image in the background. So somewhere along the street here is my address, and the first method to make a better quality out of it is to just edit the address. So we see here there's a wrong house number. So if I put in the correct house number 1 into and just relocate, we can see now the location is switching to the right position and is green now again. So I can jump now to the second location. It's somewhere in India. And there I can use the second method. I can just use this tool, activate it, and then I can switch and position my location up to the production site as I see they are here. So at the end of this process, I can have all my 11 locations checked, and then I will be ready to go to the next stage. That's what I really want to do, is to start the Geo Risk Analysis. I should only do if I am satisfied with the quality. So I am satisfied because everything is green for me. I can start now the risk analysis. Before starting, we get a little overview. It says we have got 11 locations in here. I've got currently 8,000 Geo Risk Analyzer credits. So we have a very simple credit-based license model in here. So the app informs me how much Geo Risk Analyzer credits I have and how much being used in this analysis step. But we will come back later for the license topic in detail. For now, we can start the Geo Risk analysis, and we see 11 credits will be spent now. So once I'm starting here the process, it normally takes around about 20 or 30 seconds. What's now happening behind the scenes is that the 11 coordinates will put to the Swiss Re server and also to the Konya server. And for every location, the risk information directly at this point are edited. So at the end of this step, I've got 9 new attributes on every single location with the 9 risk values at this specific point. So hopefully this time will not take longer. So I didn't stop it, but it should be the 30 seconds. So once it's done, it informs me what I can do next. For example, I can have a look at the attached information. So these attributes here at the end are new. So I can see the hailstorm, tornado, wind speed, seismic hazard, risk informations. I also can click, for example, on a spot, for example, here in Belgium, and then go into dive into it. What we can see here is, for example, that we have a low coastal flood risk, but we have a high river flood risk, and also the wind speed and the political risk is higher, and all the other risks are very low at this point. So we can go in deeper, and we also can switch on different maps. We can switch on, for example, the river flood map, and then we can see here this spot and see that we here at the city here in Belgium are very near to the river, and this is where the high river flood value is coming from. So we can also switch to the other levels, to the other layers. For example, go for the coastal flood layer, see the coastal flood risk, switch to other hazard maps, for example, the hailstorm map. See here that hailstorm is probably a problem in Europe, in parts of India, and also in the central of the US. Having a look on the tornado map, or finally having a look at the earthquake map. So we also see from supply chain perspective with seismic hazards in the central of Europe, we don't have many seismic hazards. But if we think of Italy and the last events in Amatrice, we see it related to the map we have seen here, and even also in Turkey we have got spots with very high seismic hazards. So that's my task. I want to find out the spots where I've got high risks, and as I said before, as I'm working in a procurement division, I then have to start thinking about, is this a good place to make business at this place? So then probably I could start talking to the supplier and said, okay, are you already aware of your risk, that you are in a high river flood risk or in a high seismic area working? And sometimes they are not aware of it, but sometimes they are already aware of it. And then you can think about countermeasures. So for example, for river flood, you can think about building a wall around the production site, or for seismic hazard, then sometimes you think about having more parts in my own stock so that I can produce still more of 8 more weeks if this production site may be down. So you can take different countermeasures and still make business with this location, but your own supply chain is then more safer against these hazards. So then I've done my individual risk analysis here, and then I want to take away my results. I can do this in 2 ways. For example, I can just click on 1 or 2 locations and then start to create a report. Once I created this report, it will give me a PDF report. I can make a full screen preview of this PDF report. We can see an overview map with these 2 selected locations. And then we've got for every single location all of their data. So the input street, but also the added 9 values of the different hazard layers. And finally, also the coordinate, so we can find this somewhere again in the world. So this report means a kind of business summary or management summary. And the second step is, or second way to grab away our results is to just export all the data. We can also define here in exporting in which decimal separator we use, so the German comma or the English dot. So once I exported the CSV file, it will open on my second screen. And it looks like we started from at the first part of the file. So these are the input data, but then we see all of the other values are edited now. So my risk values from the 9 different layers are edited, and also the coordinate, and also the 2 we modified in the application are here also marked out that we altered these 2 things. So now I'm done. I've got a complete risk assessment, and then I can start to think where to go with information, how to make my supply chain safe, start talking about the consequences of these risk measures. So far that's it for the live demonstration. So I switch back to my slides and then want to talk about the conclusion and the benefits. So the question was, are there any natural hazards or political risks nearby my world locations that I should be aware of? And the Geo Risk Analyzer answers this question with the 4 topics. So it has high quality risk data in there. So we have seen the river flood layer with a very high resolution of 90 meters. And we have learned that we have got a long-term experience of the geo experts from Swiss Re and also Conias, who updated this data frequently for us, and we don't have to think about these topic. The second is that we have the worldwide coverage of this data, so we only have one place to go for this complete risk assessment. And what's also important is that we have this harmonized data, so there are comparable results worldwide we produce here. The third point is that we have seen the easy and standardized workflow, so it's very straightforward and guided. So we want to have for non-mapping specialists a workflow to use it. And finally, it's a ready-to-use app. So we have directly use with a software as a service for this web application without installing anything. So with these 4 main ingredients, we can make a proactively geo-risk management for our locations. So with saying that, we are near to the end and coming to the Q&A section. And now I can have a look of the question you already gave me through the chat functionality. So I will pick up the first one. And the first question was, if I examined the political risks and found out that 5 of my 100 locations are in a country with a medium violent conflict, how can I get more detailed information for those countries? So the answer could be you can go and have the possibility to order an additional comprehensive country report from our data provider Conias. So these reports are based on quantitative assessments and combine them with qualitative insights. So you can work in 2 steps. So for the first step, make a risk assessment for all the 100 locations with the Geo Risk Analyzer. And the second step could be have then a deeper look for 1 or 2 countries with the detailed reports of Conias. So that could be the answer to the first question. The second question, is there data of actual hazard in there that happened, for example, in the last days? The answer, not at the moment, but we already thought about it, and it could be interesting to combine the long-term geodata that is in the moment with, for example, live feeds of events. But it's not directly needed because the Geo Risk Analyzer, you want to take with that a proactive long-term decisions. So decisions like, should I build a business link for the next 2 years with this location somewhere in the world? So you want to have these long-term risk maps that will give you confidence into the future. And these long-term risk maps are in the Geo Risk Analyzer at the moment. So the motto is avoid stress to my supply chain in the future by managing proactively my suppliers' locations today. With having a look at the time, we have a few more questions, but we are running out of time. So as I promised at the beginning, we will answer all this question directly afterwards, and we will contact the questionnaires afterwards via email. But let me take one last question. It's a question about having more information about the licensing. So this hands over to my two last slides. As I said before, I want to cover the topic of licensing. So we wanted to have just a simple and easy licensing approach. For the Geo Risk Analyzer itself, we wanted to have fixed costs. You just buy a block of Geo Risk Analyzer credits and then can use this directly to enrich your locations. And also the Geo Risk Analyzer lives in the S3 Cosmos, means you can find it in the S3 Marketplace, and it's working with ArcGIS Online. So to run the Geo Risk Analyzer, the user needs an ArcGIS Online organizational account. That gives us directly the opportunity to use the great background maps and the world geocoding functionality and also the user management directly as part of ArcGIS Online in our Geo Risk Analyzer application. And the second good thing is that we can also use the enormous amount of functions of the ArcGIS Online platform itself. But this would blow up our timeline if we would start about talking about the enormous functionality the whole ArcGIS Online platform offers you as a customer, but you will have the ability to use it once you have this account. But for today, I would say just contact us for your individual pricing information, depending of the types, the data you need, if you need only the political data, or if you need the natural hazard data, or if you need both. So my last slide for today, I want to wrap up with the takeaways. So for us, the Geo Risk Analyzer is the optimal tool to directly start with the worldwide geo risk management. And the next step could be, so we offer you a free analysis for a location of your choice so that you can start with your own data. We send you a request form directly after the end of this webinar. And then you can just put your address in the mail and send it to me, and then you will get a PDF as we shown in the demo for your individual address location. And also for any other question, you can contact me directly via this email. And we recorded this webinar. If this works properly, and I think it will, we will send you the link to the recording afterwards. So with saying that, I want to also thank you for attending the webinar. Please feel free to contact me directly with any questions if you have, and also enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks for your attention.